not every hadith is sunnah, but every sunnah will have a hadith or potential other evidence to, because we have a living sunnah. We also, there's a living tradition too that we need to consider. And this is why even in Bukhari, there are so many examples where the hadith is there. There's full chapters, Babu Salat fi Na'alayn. The Prophet ﷺ, he offered salah in his shoes. Yes, but nobody says, well, of praying salah in your shoes is sunnah. They could argue, well, is jaiz, is permissible, but it's in the hadith. There are many ahadith in Bukhari where nobody acts upon them, but it's sahih. Yes, and this is why, again, this might sound controversial, but I need to explain. There's a reason why Sahih Bukhari, which his full name is Al-Jami' Al-Musnad Al-Sahih Al-Mukhtasar min Umuri Rasulillah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. This is the complete name. There's a reason why this book is taught at the end of the Dars Nizami or the Islamic syllabus around the world. You have to go through several years of training in different sciences, and near the end you study Bukhari. Why? Because that book, Imam Muhammad bin Ismail Bukhari, he wrote this book with a specific intention, specific audience in mind. Yes, and this is why even Imam Ibn Jawzi Al-Hanbali rahmatullahi alayhi mentions that اعلم أن في الحديث الدقائق وآفات لا يعرفها إلا العلماء الفقهاء. That know that sometimes hadith can have intricacies and source of calamities that only the fuqaha, the jurist scholars, they know this. تارة في نقلها وتارة في معنى, في كشف معناها. Sometimes they explain the meaning to the transmission, sometimes to explain the meaning. So first we need to understand that just following hadith itself is not the way of the ulama. Even the muhaddithun themselves say so. If you look at Tirmidhi, for example, if you open Tirmidhi, in Tirmidhi, one place Imam Tirmidhi rahmatullah alayhi, he will give meaning of the hadith. He will mention the hadith, and then he will explain a meaning which ostensibly opposes the apparent meaning of the hadith, and then he will say كذلك قال الفقهاء وهم أعلم بمعاني الحديث. This is how the fuqaha, the jurists, explain the hadith. Why? Because they have more knowledge regarding the hadith. Yes. So when it comes to following fiqh, first we follow the fiqh madhab in a very specific area, and in there we follow a faqih. So there's a difference between a muhaddith and a faqih. Muhaddith is a person who compiles hadith. A faqih is a person who extracts rulings from the hadith. And it's a very famous incident. Hafiz ibn Abdul Barr rahmatullahi alayhi, Maliki scholar, has mentioned this too, that once Imam A'mash rahimahullah and Imam Abu Hanifa, they were having a conversation, and Imam A'mash, if you open Bukhari, every other side you'll find his name. He was a great muhaddith, yes, and one of the grand teachers of Imam Bukhari. And Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah mentioned a ruling, and Imam A'mash said, where have you got this ruling from? He said, well, the hadith that you just mentioned. So Imam A'mash said, I learned this hadith so many years ago, and hitherto this ruling never occurred to me. And then he said, Wallahi ya ma'ashar fuqaha, that by Allah, O you group of jurists, antum atibba wa nahnu siyadala. You are like doctors, and we are like pharmacists. So if you go to the doctors, the doctors don't have medicine lying around. There's the desk and prescription, even that you can hardly read the writing. If you go to the pharmacy, you see medicine everywhere. But who knows how to utilize, or who knows how to prescribe the medicine, or the knowledge of the medicine better? The doctor, clearly. Yes. So when people say we follow only follow Quran and Hadith, we need to explain to them that, look, following Hadith itself, this has never been the way of the Ummah. And we explain why. Because yes, we follow Hadith, but there's certain ahadith which we don't follow because it's abrogated and mansukh. Yes, or those ahadith, they might be solitary narrations, but they contradict definitive evidences. Like Shaykh Shadi mentioned, we need to explicate these two words again and again: qat'i and dhanni, definitive and speculative. Yes, we have usul, we have principles. And whilst I agree that we should simplify the language as much as possible, but there are certain things that you need to give time. Yes, deen, you need to give time. Knowledge, you have to give time. Unfortunately, we live in a time where people just want 30 seconds TikTok video and that's it. Just move on to the next video. So to understand these things, we will need a time. And Imam, just final point, even Imam Ibn Hajar Asqalani rahmatullahi alayhi, who is arguably the greatest commentator of Imam Bukhari's Bukhari, and this is difficult for a Hanafi to accept this, which is the truth, is a reality. Yes, we have the tanafus between Imam Aini and Ibn Hajar. Yes, Imam Aini was a Hanafi and Ibn Hajar was a Shafi'i, and he writes Fathul Bari and he writes Umdatul Qari. And you know, Imam Ibn Hajar's sister, Imam Ibn Hajar's sister was married to Imam Aini. Yeah, so it's the tanafus between these two scholars is something you know we should read on. Is really interesting. But he mentions Fathul Bari that فَإِنَّ عِلْمَ الْحَلَالِ وَالْحَرَامِ إِنَّمَا يُتَلَقَّى مِنَ الْفُقَهَاءِ. That the knowledge of halal and haram, when it comes to fiqh, we take this from the fuqaha. Yes.